for today's social lesson, we are going to, instead of reading the entire section, I would like you to do a little bit of pre-reading, think a little bit about what we might learn, and we're going to take a look at the various inserts that have been added to the textbook that do not make up the main text. So we are going to be focusing on 3 different sections, and each section has a question that I would like you to answer. So the first one is on page 233, and it is titled The Three Gorges Dam, Potential Disaster or Good Choice. So China's huge Three Gorges Dam provides electricity to 9 provinces. So very much like Canada, China is broken up into smaller areas like provinces. This helps the country meet its growing need for energy. In addition to producing energy, the project created thousands of jobs. It also changed the landscape along the Chang River. The dam is 2.3 meters long and 101 meters high. The reservoir behind the dam flooded 632 square kilometers of land. As well, the dam sits on a seismic fault, and there is a chance that it could be damaged by earthquakes and landslides. So when we look at this, 2.3 kilometers long, and it's 101 meters high. So to give you an idea of how far 101 meters high is, that would be like standing a football field upright. So that's how tall it is. And then 2.3 kilometers is 2,300 meters. Okay, so when we are looking at it, there are some pictures here that we're going to look at before we look at the question. It says lost species. Since the dam was constructed, the Chang River dolphin has become extinct. So this type of dolphin that lived in the Chang River has become extinct, meaning that there are no more of them left in our world. All of them have died. Relocation. More than 1 million people had to move because their homes were covered by the reservoir. So when they built the dam and it flooded the water, 1 million people had to move their homes. So when we look at this here is the dam, and it holds back high waters and helps control flooding along the river. So they purposely flooded all of this area here where people used to live so that further down the river, they could control how much water is going through so that it wouldn't flood other areas of China. So it says here, turbines in the dam produce electricity. So it is always letting water through, and as it spins all those big fans, it creates electricity for the country. The other thing they have here is it has made it easier for large ships to travel upriver, improving the economy of the area. So that means that better trade is going on. Now, typically what that means is they have what we call a lock system. So the boat would go into the first area and it would flood it, which means that it would bring it up. And then they open up a gate and they drive into the second area, and then they add water, and then they tilt at the next one, they open the gate, they drive up. So it's like going upstairs, but instead of taking a step, we use water to float the boat up or down depending on what's going on. So when we're looking at the question for this section, it asks, do you think that the economic benefits, the more trade, the ability to have more electricity, so that means bigger factories and more people living in the area, do you think that those economic benefits of building the dam were worth the environmental? So environmental is the things on the environment, that's the flooding, that's the extinction of our dolphin, okay, and social impacts. Social impacts would be that all these people had to move. So do you think that building the dam and the good things that it brought outweighs the environmental and the social repercussions or the social things that happened in a bad way. That's the first page that we're going to talk about. So if you are doing the questions as we go, I would say pause the video here, go answer your question, and then come back. So if that's what you're doing, pause now. Once you are back, we are going to be reading page 235. So 235 is titled Making a Difference. Angie Bug and Destination Conservation Saskatchewan is the title. Destination Conservation Saskatchewan, or DCS, is a hands-on environmental education program that teaches students and teachers about sustainability. Run by the Saskatchewan Environmental Society, DCS's goal is to help students make everyday choices that are good for the natural environment. Campaigns for Change. A team of staff and students conducts energy, water, and waste audits at their school. Then they run campaigns to encourage everyone in the school to change behaviors at home and at school. Their campaigns have included shocking people into reducing the waste they produce by presenting the school's garbage at an assembly, convincing parents to turn off idling vehicles, and encouraging people to drink tap water instead of bottled water. Promoting involvement. Angie Bug manages the DCS program. She is a professional engineer with a background in the oil industry, where she worked on reclaiming contaminated sites and waste management planning. Angie says, the kids are so creative in the campaigns they come up with. Students have promoted biking instead of driving and turning off school computers at the end of every day. Written letters to grocery stores asking for locally grown foods, and approached fast food places asking for alternatives to plastic foam packaging. Each of these initiatives requires planning, promotion, and convincing the people around them. So here you can see a picture. This is Angie Bug, and she is discussing lighting options, and so which light bulbs are better for the environment and more sustainable. So there are two questions that I would like you to answer for this section. The first one is, why is it important that conservation projects be carried out in schools? So why is it important that we talk about conservation and using our resources carefully and looking after the environment in schools? And question number two, how could our school and our community benefit from a DCS program? So what are some of the things that you think we could look into doing better as a school to make our school more sustainable and more environment friendly? And give me some specific examples. So if you are planning on answering these questions now would be the good time to press pause. The last section is actually 2 pages, and it is a viewpoints. And so we're going to look at the viewpoints of several different groups of people along the question of, is development of the oil sands in Alberta sustainable? So for those of you that maybe are not super familiar, the oil sands are an area in Alberta by Fort McMurray, if you guys have ever heard of Fort McMurray. And it's primarily happening around here. However, all of the places that we have this yellowy color are where we have oil sands deposits. So basically what that means is oftentimes oil is underground and it's kind of like in a little pocket underground. And so when we think about traditional oil mining, we drill down to those pockets and then suck it up. In the oil sands, it's still in a pocket but it's mixed with sand. So instead of being just like a liquid, it's kind of an ooey gooey wet sand situation. And so when we're going into the oil sands, we are trying to harvest or trying to collect the oil out of the sand. Okay. So some people believe that the oil sands in northern Alberta generate great wealth and help to fuel Canada's industry and economy. Supporters note that Alberta's oil sands yield 1.4 million barrels of oil every single day. Other people worry about the environmental impacts of extracting the oil. 2 tons of oil sands. So that means 4,000 pounds of oil sands are needed to produce 1 barrel of oil. It takes a lot of energy to separate the oil from the sand. The process also uses a lot of water. 2 to 5 barrels of water are used to produce 1 barrel of oil. After the oil and sand are separated, dirty wastewater remains behind in reservoirs called tailings ponds. This water is dangerous to animals in the area. Sometimes when you see the commercials on TV for Dawn dish soap where they're cleaning oil off of animals, a lot of times they're looking at animals that got stuck in tailings ponds, potentially in Alberta, but they also have oil sands in the United States as well. So as we go through, we kind of looked at this picture, the map already. And so what we are going to do is we're going to look at each of these little boxes has an opinion of a specific group around whether or not we should be taking oil out of the oil sands. So the first one here is because of its geographic location, Fort McKay, which is a First Nation, has had many opportunities to work with several oil sands industries by developing its own companies. Fort McKay has looked for opportunities for participation in the economy to create sustainable, long-term growth and development within Aboriginal communities. So that was found on the Fort McKay First Nation website. And if you're looking at that, try and stop and think, do they have a positive view of the oil sands or a negative view? And why? So I'll do the first one with you. I would say that this is a positive view of the oil sands. And the reason why is because Fort McKay First Nation is looking at it and saying that they have had the opportunity to grow business in their community. And so for them, this has been a way for them to bring money into their community and build a better community. So I would say that Fort McKay First Nation thinks that the oil sands are good. The next one we're going to look at is this orangey one. It says the oil sands give Canada a guaranteed supply of this vital resource. There was more than $100 billion invested in the Alberta oil sands between 1999 and 2009. This has boosted the economy and brought tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to the area. So this is by an oil company executive, someone that works really high up in one of the oil companies. So take a moment and think to yourself, is this someone that thinks that the oil sands are good or that they are bad? And why do you think that person thinks that they are good or thinks that they are bad? So we are going to take a look at this picture here before we read some more opinions. So this says the reclaimed land near the oil sands mining operation in northern Alberta, which is right here, and the polluted tailings ponds near an oil sands mining operation in northern Alberta, which is over here. So you can kind of take a look at what it looks like. So the reclaimed land means that once they have come through and they have taken all the oil out of the area, they have to, by law, put it back to what it naturally was before. And so this is that reclaimed, where they are putting it back to what it was before. And you can see that the drilling and the process has moved over a little bit. And then over here, you can see that this is those polluted tailings ponds that can create issues for our wildlife. So we're going to look at this green opinion. It says, we're not just closing our eyes to the oil industry. There are strict regulations and careful inspections. Companies are investing in environmental protection. The first reclaimed tailings ponds are a success, and soon we'll see more. So this is someone from the government of Alberta who has shared this opinion. And so take a moment and think about, do they think that they're a good thing? Do they think that the oil sands are a bad thing? And why would they think that? And so in case we're not sure what a couple of these are, so strict regulations and inspections. This means that they have lots of very strict rules, and people come in and make sure that they are following the rules all the time. And so that's kind of what they're talking about in that one there. So is it good? Is it bad? And why do they say that? The next one is Canada's oil sands deposits trapped in sand and clay require extreme amounts of hydrogen, electricity, steam, hot water, diesel fuel, and natural gas to extract. The energy intensity of extracting this bitumen, which is what they call it in the oil sands, generally produces a carbon footprint 2 to 3 times greater than that of light oil, or the oil that they can suck up as a liquid. Canada's rapid development of the oil sands has given the nation one of the largest carbon footprints in the world. So this was a quote by Andrew Nikiforuk, who is an environmental journalist. So he is a writer for either a magazine or a newspaper or an online website that focuses on environmental issues. So does he believe that this is a positive thing, the oil sands? Does he think it's a bad thing? And why does he think that? And the last viewpoint that we have here is our message is plain and clear. If we continue to let industry and government behave the way they've been behaving the last 40 years, there will be no turn back, because it will be the total destruction of the land. Our residents believe leakage or spills from oil sands tailings ponds has polluted the Athabasca River and is poisoning their fish and their people. This was a quote from Chief Alan Adam from the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation. So take a moment, think, does he think they're a good thing? Does he think that they're a bad thing? And why does he think that? Now, we are actually not going to answer the 3 questions that are listed on this page. I have given you a separate question that I would like you to answer. And that question is, based on the reading of each of the different opinions on the sustainability of the Alberta oil sands, so whether it's good or bad, do you believe that they are sustainable? And if they are good for our environment, good for our economy, why or why not? So yes, they are, or no, they're not, and tell me why you think that. If you have questions, please send me a Hangouts message or send me an email, and we can discuss this a little bit more. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in class.